Hello everyone, here we are with a new saga from the channel. This time we will present the saga, The First Super Saiyan. I believe most people have wondered who the first Super Saiyan was and what he did during his life. If you ask yourself that question and want to know the answer, then you come to the right place. If you're curious to know what's going to happen, I recommend that you continue until the end of this video. Don't forget to like the video as this contributes to the growth of the channel, and then share this video with your friends who also like Dragon Ball. That said, grab your lunch, turn off the bedroom lights, and join this incredible saga. Millions and millions of years ago, there was a Saiyan named Wukong. He was one of the first Saiyans to exist. This Saiyan was seen as the father of Saiyans. Wukong was wise and passed his teachings on to the rest of his race, being very intelligent and thinking more with his head than with his heart. Wukong easily realized that the rest of his race ended up losing important resources because of the unstoppable and constant rage that was there in the rest of the race. As Wukong realized this, and because he was clearly more successful than any other Saiyan there, having water and food in abundance and variety, he taught the Saiyans to be rational and calm so that they could live in peace. As time went by, Wukong became decorated as a god and loved by its civilization because its intelligence and its teachings helped everyone. Saiyans had rituals that were considered sacred and called upon a bit of Wukong's wisdom when needed. Wukong particularly did not like to be treated like a god, as he was a citizen like any other. But Wukong saw that this was helping the people to prosper and live in peace and harmony. As his people passed on their knowledge, the words of Wukong had already spread to all the Saiyans on the planet. Over time, Wukong was getting older and older, and he was already the oldest Saiyan of all. But he managed to remain firm because he used his medicinal knowledge and immense wisdom to find ways to continue living. Not even the most enraged of Saiyans could get irrational with so much anger around Wukong. God Wukong's word changed the temperament of all beings without exception. Even those who were considered infidels respected Wukong, as being a deity or not. His wisdom and compassion were truly respected and worshipped. Wukong once noticed a conflict between those who worshipped him as a divine creature and those who considered him just as a wise old man. Wukong then called a Saiyan from each group to represent all those who held the same or similar opinion. The Saiyans were having a very peaceful and productive debate while Wukong was just watching and alerting the representatives when one of them was disrespectful, or calling the audience's attention when someone in it made a noise loud enough to interrupt the debate. The Saiyans were arguing with each other for long minutes, and the debate never had a real conclusion. One said that Wukong was genetically the same as the others. He was the same species, and therefore he was like any other, his enormous wisdom being the only difference and nothing else. The other said that there was no rational Saiyan like Wukong, and none so wise like him. So most of the Saiyans faithfully believed in the idea of him being something divine and kind. Wukong, observing where the debate was going, said, "There is no way to prove who was wrong or who was right, because despite being wise, there are still hundreds of thousands of things to be discovered and millions of mysteries to be unraveled. Therefore, as none of the theories were proven wrong or right, the best thing to do would be to respect the belief of your fellow man and not force each other to believe what you want them to believe. After all, that would be unfair and very wrong," Wukong said, and so peace and balance remained intact. Until one day, a ship landed near the house where Wukong lived, and furious warriors belonging to Frieza's race went to Wukong with eyes full of greed, an evil smile on their faces. A part of the people was concerned about the safety of their god, who was already very old, while the other part was more concerned with believing that the word of God would touch the hearts of those evil warriors. The strongest of that race went to Wukong, demanding his knowledge, and Wukong knew they didn't mean well. Wukong tried to warn them, but they just needed to stay calm and be kind, and wisdom would come naturally. But the warriors thought that Wukong knew how to get enough power to achieve immortality, since he knew very well what he had to do to live together. When Wukong realized this, he said that just being kind and practicing meditation would increase their lifespan. The soldiers faced each other. They were confused by what Wukong said, who decided to get out of there as it would be the best option for now. Clearly it wasn't going to work so fast that they got what they wanted overnight. In contrast, Wukong continued to live his life based on meditation and calm. At least it was like that until he met an older girl who found him on a day that Wukong had decided to walk around the planet. This girl had short black hair. She was a little shorter than Wukong. Her name was Jinn. Wukong didn't remember seeing her during her lifetime, so it could just be someone who decided to live their life indoors. Wukong started walking along with the girl beside him. Wukong began to dialogue with her. "So why is this the first time I see you here?" asked the Saiyan to the Saiyan girl. The girl immediately replied, I don't usually leave the house. Normally I stay there taking care of things. I also take care of my little brother," answered the Saiyan girl. Wukong was a little surprised, although that was to be expected. Again he replied, "You must carry a great responsibility." "How fantastic. What's your name?" questioned Wukong. The girl was happy to hear that and soon replied, "It's Jinn, sir," asked the Saiyan girl with a smile in her eyes. Wukong was enchanted by the girl's name, and then he said, "What a beautiful name, Jinn. You must already know me, right?" questioned the Saiyan Wukong. A blush rose on Jinn's face. She was shy by Wukong's response. "Yes, Wukong, you are well known around here. Impossible not to know who you are," said Jinn with a friendly smile on her face. Wukong was extremely happy hearing that and then spoke. "Thank you. Well, anyway, it's almost night. Hunger is quite harmful. Let's eat something," asked Wukong to the girl who was thinking about Wukong's proposal. Jinn couldn't refuse the invitation, so she just accepted, saying, I don't want to bother you, but I accept," Jinn replied. Wukong and Jinn began to explore the place in search of the meal they were going to eat. They found various exotic foods and ate them deliberately. A feeling arose in Wukong's chest. It was love, a feeling that turned even the wisest of beings into an irrational being. As time passed, the feeling grew. Wukong was even happier to see her, and this was repeated for the next few months. Until, on a peaceful day, ships appeared again on the Saiyan's planet. They were Frieza's race soldiers. The inhabitants fell into crisis and disorder. The soldiers began to invade the village and kill the Saiyans present there. Wukong was meditating, but he was soon interrupted by hearing the screams of the innocent people. Wukong ran, and from afar, he heard the cry of his beloved. During that short period, everything was silent. Only the scream of his beloved was echoing in his mind. He ran after those responsible and found them. They were from the enemy army. However, in an attempt to save the girl, one of the Saiyans threw a spear at the soldier who was holding Jinn. The spear pierced the soldier, and unfortunately, Jinn too. At that moment, Wukong shed a tear. He couldn't believe what was before his eyes. It was just a nightmare. No? But this was real. Wukong exploded with rage and destroyed the enemy army in a matter of seconds. The army leader eventually managed to flee Wukong. The most rational Saiyan was taken by the purest of hatred. He took lives in a matter of seconds. Wukong took the dead body of his beloved, turned his back on his village, and disappeared from there forever. Many years have passed since the previous events in the life of the legendary Wukong. He then decided to get away from all the wild Saiyans and decided to create his own temple by isolating himself from everyone. Wukong understood that he was different from the others, and that he didn't want to become a primate Saiyan like the others, and for that reason he didn't take revenge on the Saiyans responsible for Jinn's death. Wukong had become a legend for the Saiyans, and this legend was passed down from generation to generation. But few members of the Saiyan race really believed in this legend, because when Wukong decided that he was going to disappear forever, he left no trace. Once a group formed by 4 Saiyan explorers in one of their great adventure decided to explore a temple very well hidden and difficult to find. That was the mysterious temple of Wukong. They heard legends that the Saiyan god would be alive and that he had his temple in the center of the Saiyan planet. So the Saiyans quartet went looking, as they hoped to find treasures and even knowledge. These curious Saiyans were looking to find more information about the legend of Wukong. They had already talked to even the oldest Saiyans on the planet. They had already looked everywhere. But after a long time looking, they finally found the place that they were looking for so much that it was the temple of Wukong. The explorers were slowly approaching the temple, and Vados, who was the Saiyan responsible for leading the group, walked ahead with courage and caution, as he knew the possibility of there being traps there. Since as he was hidden, whoever built this temple, he most certainly wanted to prevent invaders. Vados and his group walked suddenly, until Vados silently gestured to the rest of the group to stop approaching that ancient building. He took a stone and threw it precisely in a deliberately thin and almost imperceptible line. When breaking that line with the stone, several sharp projectiles came out of the thicket. Vados took one of these projectiles and realized that they were darts. They weren't big enough to kill someone, but at their tip there was a liquid that was probably sleeping. Vados then assumed a worried posture because this type of trap was not supposed to be working after years, so they thought that someone else had found this temple before and was protecting it from what was inside. The explorers had already faced many things together, and that wasn't enough to end their determination and their thirst for information. On the contrary, everyone opened a smile and became even more cautious and excited. When approaching a little closer, the group of Saiyans noticed that there were writings in the ancient form of the language, which were on the outside of the walls, and even some drawings of extinct animals. Whoever built this temple certainly had information from decades ago and certainly had immense wisdom. Knowing how to plant traps with sleeping pills, one of the four Saiyans was beginning to suspect that Wukong was really real and that this was his temple. The young Saiyans, who were sure before that even if Wukong had existed, surely he would already be dead of old age. They were now in doubt because of the environment in which they found themselves. Varos was in front of the stairs that led to the entrance of the temple, but Varos didn't want to enter because the stairs had a strange pattern. When he put his hand on the stairs and pressed them, he noticed that they lowered like a button. However, despite his curiosity, he didn't dare finish pressing and decided to climb the side of the temple and go to the entrance. Varos, together with his group, arrived at the entrance that was incredibly dark. A Saiyan called Kalia, who accompanied him as part of the group, pointed a flashlight at it, revealing that the corridor of the supposed entrance was in the shape of a giant channel, as if it had to get something rolling. The leader of the explorers did not let his friend pass that way, until Kindron, the youngest member of the group, pointed to the top of the temple, exclaiming, "Look, there is a second entrance at the top, and if you analyze it correctly, you will see that the relief that makes up the drawings from a staircase to the top," said the young Saiyan, calling the attention of all his friends. Varos, who was proud of his friend, who despite his age showed great talent, stroked Kindron's head and said, "Very well observed, Kindron. Come on, one at a time," said Varos, leaving Kindron happy. The whole group followed Varos in a single file, with 1.5 meters of distance between each one of the group. Varos glanced at the entrance and then entered, not noticing any traps. All members entered with him. But as soon as Varos took the first step, he ended up stepping on a sound trap. Now, whoever was there in the temple knew that there were invaders. Varos noticed that the entrance he used did not serve as an exit. The people who built the temple planned that when someone noticed that entrance and ended up stepping into a trap, he would be forced to follow the path no matter the danger. Doctome calmed the group and said, "Well, we only have one option now," said Doctome. The members agreed and cheered up again. Filled with courage, they advanced along the path with bravery in their eyes. But they obviously walked more cautiously, as they had been discovered. The owner of the temple decided that he would not move, as he thought that the internal traps would do the trick. First, they walked slowly down a corridor filled with absolute and pure silence. It was a long corridor, and apparently there was nothing. They were walking slowly, afraid of the traps, but apparently there weren't any more. It took them a few minutes to complete the course, because it was a large corridor, and the group was walking cautiously. The corridor had turned to the left, where it would take them to the room of the owner of the temple. The fourth member, who had not yet been introduced, took the lead and then spoke. "There's nothing. Let me go ahead. You can rest assured about that. Leave it to me," said the Saiyan. Varos then retorted, saying, "Hal, it's dangerous. You shouldn't be leading us into a place we know has hidden pitfalls. Stay here and follow me," warned Varos. Hal observed his leader and disobeyed him again. "Come on, Varos. This isn't hard at all. Look and learn," said Hal, showing off. Hal started walking carelessly. He even seemed to be running. Varos tried to catch up with Hal, but he was determined to advance alone and be the leader of the group. While Varos kept with the others, however, Hal ended up activating a trap by stepping on a transparent wire. Hal covered his face with his arms, thinking that something might come to kill him then and there, but nothing came. Hal slowly lowered his arms that were protecting his face and then started to create a smile on his face. It wasn't today that Hal would die. At least, that's what he thought. In an instant, a violent breeze hit the place. Dust rose everywhere, and Hal had his vision completely blacked out. In a moment, the dust dispersed, revealing what had happened. Instantly, Varos covered Kindron's eyes. Doctome began to vomit desperately. What had been revealed after the dust dispersed was Hal's destroyed body. That breeze wasn't just a simple wind. Something pushed Hal at high speed, causing his body to crash against the wall and be destroyed in pieces. A more detailed view of Hal's destroyed body would be as follows. His clothes were completely destroyed on impact, except for his pants. His jaw was knocked out of place, leaving only his upper teeth. His feet were ripped off, remaining where he was the moment he activated the trap. All members of the group were in complete shock, especially Doctome, who apparently had been the most shaken by that scenario. Dust covered the transparent wires, making it possible to identify where they were and facilitating the passage to that place. The group continued walking through that location. Again, the entrance doubled. This time, it had been to the right place. They walked and walked for several minutes without fearing what might interfere with their plans. The group continued and continued until they tired and rested for a few minutes. Only in the meantime, hours had passed. The group's rest was over, so they went to the next room. where apparently everything was quiet. Of course they were suspicious, and after everything that had happened, they were traumatized. The only one who hadn't been shaken was Kindred, who had his eyes blindfolded by Varys at the time of what happened to Hal. Of course, after that, they walked for a little longer, and then finally reached the next room, which was a straight corridor. Again, the group walked until Doctome stepped into a trap. The moment he realized that the trap had activated, Doctome began to shed tears and cry in despair. He even tried to run, but unfortunately it didn't work. A pillar emerged from the ground, hitting Doctome's belly right after. A pillar appeared from above, descending and crushing his body at once. His head came rolling off the ground. His eyes were still open and watering. Varys pulled Kindred by the arm and began to run desperately. He didn't know how, but he kept losing his friends in that miserable way. The next room was numbered the number 1. Maybe that meant something, but they didn't know the use of that number. Not yet. When the group arrived at the door of the temple, a smoke appeared, and from the middle of the smoke came Wukong, impressing the group of Saiyans, who said, "Wow, you really exist. We thought you were dead, and that you were just a legend," said the leader of the Saiyan group, surprised as well as the others. Even with the Saiyans surprised, Wukong was very irritated with the appearance of the group in his temple, who shouted to the travelers, "Get out of here now. I don't want you here in my temple. You with your thirst for blood, you killed my beloved Jinn. Even after everything I did for you, I know very well what you want, and I'll let you know that I'm not leaving here," Wukong said, visibly irritated by the presence of the Saiyans in the palace. The Saiyans tried to calm him down, saying, "You were our symbol of peace, and that war that killed your Jinn happened. Many others happened afterwards, in towns and villages. We need you back. We need you," said the Saiyans, begging for Wukong's help. Wukong got even more enraged with what the Saiyans said, and seconds before he opened his mouth to expel the group, the angel Whis appeared, scaring everyone there. Wukong recognized the form and aura of this being, and being a great reader, Wukong said, "Are you real angels? Where were you all this time, and why are you here now?" Wukong said, surprised, questioning Whis about stopping. Whis ignored Wukong's questions, and agreeing with the group of Saiyans, Whis said, "The short guys are right. You need to go back, Wukong. The future of the Saiyan race depends on it. You know I'm an angel, right? Then you must know well that I am very wise, and that it is better to listen to me." "Oh, and I'm not going to answer those questions you asked," Whis said, looking at Wukong as he spoke. Wukong was silent in the face of the angel's arguments, but after much thought, Wukong replied, "Okay, I can even go back, but I won't help them escape the traps. And not even," said Wukong, looking at the Saiyans, but being interrupted by Whis. The angel interrupted Wukong, saying to the explorers, "Let's go, children. The path is this way. Leave this grouchy old man behind," Whis said, calling the attention of the Saiyan group. Wukong was impressed by the wisdom and power of an angel. Soon after, Whis left the temple and left the Saiyan warriors in their homes, accompanying them and protecting them on the way. Whis told the group that now the angel would be responsible for Wukong. Whis then goes back to the temple, that is Wukong's hideout, and there he looks at the horizon, waiting for Wukong's arrival. While waiting, Whis heard someone calling him in the distance. Whis went to the voice that called him, and after passing through pastures, crossing streams and climbing mountains, Whis found the owner of the voice that called him. The voice belonged to Wukong, who questioned him. "Why didn't you come faster?" said Wukong, questioning Whis' delay. The angel made a disgusted face at the Saiyan. So Whis took a deep breath and turned his head and said, "I was waiting for you after I left the group of Saiyans in their homes, but you didn't show up. So I heard someone calling me and I came to see who was calling me. And on the way I found these delicious fruits. Taste them and see how delicious they are," Whis said in a sarcastic tone. He was a little angry for having been waiting for Wukong. Wukong looked scared at the fruit that Whis was holding and said, "Are you crazy? That is a poisonous fruit. Knocks down even the strongest of men," Wukong said, warning Whis of the dangers of that fruit. Whis, who was impressed, said, "But they're so delicious. I've never seen these fruits harm anyone." "Well, if I don't overdo it, I won't suffer from the fruit toxin, so I think I'll eat some," Whis said, managing to get around the situation. Wukong ignored what Whis said and vented, saying, "Look, I wanted to continue, but I'm not able to. I lost that calm and that focus that I had before. I no longer have the ability to be someone who fights for peace. How could a being like me, so impatient and furious, be the symbol of peace? Come on, tell me," Wukong said, lamenting his current state. Whis put his arms on Wukong's shoulders and said, trying to calm him down, "Look, this feeling of peace and tranquility, they are not part of the kind of thing that we lose and never find again. Your situation is perfectly reversible, and I already knew you would have such a problem, even more so after losing your loved one to your own race. I'm in charge of taking care of you and your stress problem, so rest assured that I'll help you," Whis said, trying to calm down Wukong. Wukong looked at Whis as if he were suspecting him. Whis noticed Wukong's look and said, "Come on, focus on your anger. You need to release her. Use your anger for something. Take your anger out on something and leave the rest to me," Whis said, leaving Wukong without reaction. Wukong didn't want to do any of that, but Whis insisted. "Go there, do something, move. Do you think Jinn would like to see you soft like that? I doubt it," Whis said, trying to use Wukong's dead lover as motivation for the Saiyan. Wukong exploded with rage at this provocation from Whis. It took him a few seconds to notice that there was someone else besides them in that location. When Wukong realized, his anger began to subside, and the mood was pleasant again. Whis laughed at what had happened to Wukong and then introduced a special guest. "This is Kennen. He is an apprentice who has been doing very well lately. He is very good at dealing with problems, such as his anger management," Whis said, introducing his newest disciple.
Wukong watched Kennen attentively and thought to himself, what would be the reason for Whis to be there with his apprentice? Whis noticed that Wukong was restless, and already imagining the reason, Whis faced the Saiyan god and said, "I imagine you want to know why we're here. Don't worry, I'll explain. This young angel is in the process of learning, and I'm training him to be a great angel. The power Kennen already has, but he needs experience," Whis explained with a smile, while Wukong was quite surprised by that. Wukong, still confused, exclaimed, "But what do I have to do with that?" questioned Wukong, angry, looking at the angels who were calm. Whis chuckled and said, "Kennen is in the process of becoming one of the new angels. My apprentice is in the training phase. What I'm going to propose will be something like an exchange. He learns, and in return, you, Wukong, evolve learning with Kennen. After all, I don't know very well, but I believe that your path as the Saiyan god will directly influence the Saiyan race in the future. In addition, you will gain a bonus and increase your warrior skills even more. What do you say?" questioned Whis, facing Wukong, who was very thoughtful, watching the young Kennen, who remained calm and serene all the time. Wukong, after calming down and reasoning about Whis' proposal, said, "For what reason should I help you?" said Wukong, irritated, because he just wanted to be alone and rest a lot. The young angel apprentice, Kennen, who was silent, decided to speak, and looking at Wukong's serious eyes, Kennen said, "You were a born leader of your people, but now you turned your back and abandoned them. Don't you feel like going back to being a leader?" questioned Kennen, leaving Wukong quite thoughtful on the subject. Wukong replied saying, "I don't want to know more about leading, I just want to be in peace. That era has passed, now I'm in another. If you don't have anything else to say, please leave," exclaimed Wukong, irritated. The young angel Kennen decided to use his last argument to convince Wukong to accept the proposal. Kennen smiled and then said, "Currently the planet of the Saiyajin has a new leader. If I were you, I would not let them have another leader besides you," said Kennen, teasing Wukong, who was quite bothered. Wukong was irritated and at the same time curious, wanting to know who it was. Wukong questioned, "What leader is this?" questioned Wukong, interested in Kennen's story. Angel Kennen's apprentice said, "I won't reveal anything unless you accept Whis' proposal," Kennen said, smiling as he looked at Wukong, who was irritated, while Whis laughed at his young apprentice's daring. Wukong sighed and said, "Okay, I accept." Wukong spoke frustrated. The young angel Kennen was happy that Wukong had accepted and continued saying, "Okay then, follow me and I'll take you to the planet of the Saiyans," said Kennen, directing his speech to Wukong. Wukong didn't answer, he just stood up, making it clear that he was going to follow him. Kennen then floated away and Wukong followed him, walking. As the apprentice angel slowly levitated, Saiyan Wukong walked with an angry face and a deadly look on his face. Kennen and Wukong started walking a long way, leaving the temple where they were before. After leaving the temple, they found an open and deserted area where they would begin their training. Wukong began to stretch, getting ready for any and all types of training. Kennen also prepared himself, but unlike Wukong, the angel apprentice prepared himself only psychologically, as he did not believe he would use much of his power. Wukong didn't know what else to do and faced Kennen, waiting for him to say what Wukong would have to do. Kennen looked at Wukong with a confused look. The little angel apprentice was not used to being the master, quite the contrary, he was usually the apprentice, and another angel closer to him, in this case Whis, was the one who gave the orders. Wukong started tapping his foot impatiently. The fledgling angel Kennen came to his senses saying, "Oh, man, I forgot. I'm the one who has to train you, right? Forgive me, I'm not used to this kind of situation at all. Since this is my first time being a master, I'm going to do what Whis always does. So now, just try to hit me, Kennen said, apologizing and at the same time trying to help Wukong. As soon as the angel Kennen finished speaking, Wukong disappeared and along with him, his presence as well. Kennen didn't expect that from a mere scion. Kennen still remained in the same position. Wukong appeared behind Kennen with a punch ready. However, before delivering the punch, Wukong disappeared again and reappeared to Kennen's right, with his hands moving to try to hit him. Kennen didn't blink during that time, but he still dodged it like it was the most predictable punch ever. Apprentice Kennen looked at Wukong and said, "So, you want to know more about the new leader of your race?" Kennen said, facing Wukong with a sarcastic smile on his face. Such a comment enraged Wukong. After all, even if Kennen dodged that punch, it was not possible to speak in combat, but Kennen was doing it. Wukong was enraged that his punch was completely ignored, and his pride was hurt by an angel. But Wukong ignored this feeling of hatred and fury and said, "Yes, I want to. Tell me more about this mediocre leader of theirs, but I'll warn you that I won't answer what you ask, as I'm pretty focused on punching your face," Wukong said, still trying to hit Kennen. The angel Kennen laughed in a mocking tone and continued, "Well, you won't hit me anyway, and I'm very calm here, so I can speak clearly. The scion crowned as the leader of his race is called Yamoshi. He is a powerful and very fierce warrior. I would say that he is currently better than you in fights," said young Kennen, explaining in detail how the new leader of the scions was. Wukong was even more nervous because of Kennen's provocations, that his punches caused pressure in the air, partially destroying the environment around him. Kennen knew very well that he was hurting Wukong's ego, and that was exactly what Kennen wanted. The young angel Kennen kept teasing Wukong saying, "Don't worry about your people, all the scions are being very well taken care of under Yamoshi's leadership. He may even be fierce, but he knows very well how to lead a population of warriors, and he knows a lot of ways to solve his people's problems. The guy is really nice. He is very studious. He searched ancient books and scriptures only to learn of their teachings and their ancient advice, including he is one of several followers of him," Kennen said, explaining even more about Yamoshi to Wukong. Wukong was now calmer and his energy was being spent more effectively. Kennen was making Wukong oscillate between stress and calm, precisely so that Kennen could find the best point between the two in a rational and intelligent way, so that Wukong would become even stronger. Angel Apprentice Kennen continued, "Look, now your attacks are getting more interesting. Very well, continuing. This Yamoshi has a castle, and he reigns from there. When his subjects want to talk to him, they go to his castle, so he knows what has to be done and what problems Yamoshi has to solve. That castle isn't too far from here. I'll take him there as soon as we finish his training. My guess is that you'll get better if you learn to control your anger and find a balance between fury and calm, so that you can concentrate all that destruction on a single target," Kennen said, trying to help Wukong, telling him to control this power. Wukong spent a long time punching and kicking, never landing a single blow, while the angel Kennen explained the way to the castle and took the opportunity to eat a snack. The angel apprentice announced the end of training and both rested. After recovering their energy, Kennen and Wukong slowly made their way to the castle of the current leader of the scions, Yamoshi. Wukong looked eager to meet Yamoshi. The castle of the current leader of the scions wasn't too far from the training ground, as the trip didn't even take 20 minutes. The apprentice angel known as Kennen approached the door of the great castle where supposedly the current leader of the scions, Yamoshi, attended to his subjects. Wukong followed Kennen as he was curious about the identity of the new scion leader. The castle guards noticed Kennen and Wukong's sudden visit and ordered them to wait, as Kennen and Wukong would soon be attended to by Yamoshi. After a few minutes, the guards opened the gates and upon looking closely, the guards were amazed to see who their visitors were. A castle guard who was astonished exclaimed, "It's not possible. Are you really Wukong? I can only be dreaming. Call the leader here immediately," said the castle guard, who was surprised to see Wukong. The recruits all responded at the same time, bowing. "Yes, sir," said the guards, withdrawing. Everyone went in an organized manner. Behind Yamoshi, the castle guard asked Kennen and Wukong to wait. Yamoshi arrived with his arms crossed and a frown on his face, thinking that it might be a strange kind of prank, but as soon as Yamoshi looked at Wukong, he lost his posture and was also surprised to recognize his idol. Yamoshi invited them to enter his castle. Yamoshi said, "Please come in. You are welcome here. A feast awaits us." "Guards, prepare the best meal you can, as we have special guests today, said Yamoshi, inviting the apprentice angel Kennen and Wukong. Wukong and Kennen politely entered the castle and followed Yamoshi to a dining room. As soon as they arrived in the room, Wukong and Kennen could see two guards finishing preparing the table and pulling chairs for the three to sit. The guards served drinks to Yamoshi, Kennen, and Wukong and then returned to their position. Yamoshi took the first sip and started the conversation. Well, I haven't introduced myself yet. I am Yamoshi, the current leader of the Saiyan warrior race, and I must say that I am impressed. I already knew of your longevity, as I am one of your followers, but even having read about it, I can hardly believe that you are alive, and also brought what appears to be an angel with you. May I ask your name? Said Yamoshi, introducing himself and at the same time questioning the angel. Kennen was a little embarrassed and replied, My name is Kennen. Thanks so much for having us. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Kennen said, trying to be as respectful as possible. Wukong joined the conversation. Apparently my people's drinking has improved a lot. You are a good leader, Yamoshi. I also like to meet you. When did you start studying about me? Well, it looks like he's been at it for years. Not everyone knows what an angel is and still knows how effective my longevity is. Wukong said, praising the drink and at the same time questioning Yamoshi. Yamoshi was flattered by his idol's praise, who went on to say, Thanks for the compliments. It's an honor to receive this from such great guests. I've been studying about you since I was little. I'm one of your thousands of admirers. Also, pardon for taking your post, but I did my best to lead our people, said Yamoshi, trying to be modest. Wukong scratched the back of his head saying, No need to apologize, you did good. I am grateful for making my people prosper. No one better than one of my apprentices for such a position, said Wukong, boasting in a way. Before Yamoshi could say anything, the guards arrived and put a veritable feast on the table, with meat, fruits, vegetables, and even some desserts. Kennen took what looked like a candy and politely enjoyed himself with that food. Wukong took a meat that was juicy and devoured it, trying hard not to be rude. Kennen laughed and commented, Sorry for him. He was living in a cave. Maybe he forgot how to eat without looking like an animal, said Kennen, apologizing for his companion. Yamoshi ate the same way Wukong did, so he wouldn't feel alone, and they both laughed. Wukong spoke while laughing, I liked you. You just earned my respect, Wukong said, laughing and continuing to chew the meal. Yamoshi also laughed and said, That's it, said Yamoshi, laughing and eating like Wukong. Kennen pretended he was disgusted and teased, saying, Wow, these Saiyans are really animals. But this candy right here is a masterpiece. The fruits also look delicious to me, Kennen said, while tasting the sweets on the table. Wukong and Yamoshi touched their hands in greeting while continuing to laugh and eat their meat. Yamoshi stopped laughing and continuing the conversation. He asked, I forgot to ask. What do you guys do here? Said Yamoshi, questioning Kennen and Wukong. Wukong looked to Kennen for answers. The angel faced Yamoshi and got up from his chair, putting his hands on the table violently, scaring both Saiyans present there. Kennen then said, There's no reason. I just wanted to show you to Mr. Wukong, Kennen said, explaining the reason to Yamoshi. Yamoshi placed his elbows on the table and crossing his hands, said, Intriguing, well, I have a proposal for Mr. Wukong, then, said Yamoshi, who had a look of surprise on his face, which changed to a smile. Wukong was curious and questioned Yamoshi, saying, A proposal for me? What would it be? Wukong said, completely confused and curious about what Yamoshi would say. Yamoshi kept his smile on his face and said, Yes, I want you to assume the position of leader of the Saiyans again. After all, you were the best, said Yamoshi, making everyone who was present be surprised, to the point of not being able to pronounce anything. Kennen looked at Wukong, who was completely frozen, staring at Yamoshi. After a few minutes of thinking, Wukong answered Yamoshi, saying, No, I can't. You are a good leader, said Wukong, leaving Yamoshi surprised by the answer. Yamoshi gave up his previous posture, his elbows came off the table, and he stood up, saying, I don't take no for an answer. Let's decide that in the Jokenpa, said Yamoshi, leaving Kennen surprised, but Wukong had liked that idea. Wukong got up and went to Yamoshi. They got ready, and then they started. Wukong won the first, having thrown rock, and Yamoshi having thrown scissors. Kennen wasn't surprised by this. In fact, he was a bit reluctant about it. Yamoshi won the next one, having played scissors again, and Wukong played paper. Kennen was surprised this time, but thought it was just luck. Wukong and Yamoshi played the same move 4 times, drawing each time. Now, it would be the last move. Kennen started to worry. A drop of sweat started to run down his face. Wukong and Yamoshi were making their last move. Wukong stopped Yamoshi when they were getting ready and said, "I know. I had an idea. Let's rule together," Wukong said, leaving Yamoshi thoughtful. Yamoshi then said, "Great, how did I not think of that before? You are truly the wisest," said Yamoshi, accepting Wukong's idea. Wukong, observing the situation, said, "So you accept it, young man? Saiyans will be able to have 2 rulers now," Wukong said, leaving Kennen surprised. Yamoshi looked at Wukong and said, "Yes, I accept. You are now one of the rulers of the Saiyans." "Congratulations," said Yamoshi, congratulating Wukong for officially being one of the rulers of the Saiyan Empire. They ate the feast, and Yamoshi left with Kennen and Wukong to announce their new ruler to the people. Yamoshi appeared in the center of the city, and on a kind of giant screen, Yamoshi said, "My people, a legend has returned. Now I'm not the sole governor of this planet. There is one more, someone you knew only in books or in stories your parents and grandparents told. But this Saiyan exists. His name is Wukong," said Yamoshi, introducing Wukong as the new ruler. Saiyans who heard it responded with a round of applause and shouts for Wukong. Wukong was amazed seeing this. He looked at Kennen, who was accompanying him, and gave an excited smile. But, as always, good things don't last forever. After the announcement that Wukong would be one of the rulers of the planet of the Saiyans, ships began to fly over the planet of the Saiyans. Yamoshi, Wukong, and Kennen were completely surprised to see the ships. Soldiers began to leave the ship, soldiers of the frozen race, better known as Frisia's race. These soldiers had an impressive physical size and all had the same shape. The soldiers had pointed horns instead of ears, their skin was white and they had no hair, just something purple instead. They had huge tails and were armed with different weapons. One of the soldiers looked at Wukong and pointed at him, saying, "You who lied to our boss. He died of old age. What you said was lie," said the soldier, completely revolted. Then a being came out of that tumult. This being was the same as the others, however, he was bigger. In both physical and fighting power, this being was the strongest among those soldiers. The being said, "Sorry for the fuss, and hello, my name is Frigg. I'm their leader. I took over the post after the old leader ended up passing away. And I come to announce to all of you, here and now, that the war has begun," said Frigg, opening a smile from end to end. The soldiers began shooting through the city, trying to destroy it all at once. Hey guys, I know it's sad when today's video unfortunately ends, but don't worry because the next episodes are coming. If you liked it, don't forget to leave your like. It helps us a lot and motivates us to continue with these videos that you like so much. Comment your theories on what might happen in the next episode, and share the video with your friends so they can watch it together. That's it, see you guys.